last class. And for your information, dear friends, when we're talking about the Renaissance provided the platform to rethink and to accept the thing with logic. That you must keep in mind. And today we are going to discuss the another aspects. It is relating to the Renaissance, but caption is I am talking about the Enlightenment. Caption is the Enlightenment. Now, question comes, dear friends, whenever we are talking about the Enlightenment, we must keep in mind what is enlightenment. Sometimes the people might have heard, or sometimes we discuss. Generally, enlightenment happened in the world context. That is roughly 600 to 1700 CE. This is the tagline because it believes the time and was the major intellectual and cultural movement. Enlightenment means a movement, a kind of the change happened in the society that through the intellectual and the cultural movement. And it was happened different in the Europe. And people emphasized on reasons why it has happened, why the fruit comes down to the earth and why not the flight doesn't comes down. ଗଛରୁ ଗୋଟେ ଫଳ ଯେତେବେଳେ ପଡୁଛି ସେ ମାଟି ତଳକୁ ଆସୁଛି ମାଟିକୁ ଆସୁଛି why not upwards. So we are talking the enlightenment in Europe generally focuses on the region. Then we may talk of the science and the individual rights. What I may talk about in context to India after the constitution formed, framed by the Constituent Assembly through the drafting committee, the chairman was B.R. Ambedkar. So he has emphasized on the fundamental rights. What we may talk about Article 18, that you must keep in mind, dear friends. Article 19 to Article 20, 21, 22. What it speaks? It speaks about the fundamental rights. So in the Europe, for your information, in Europe, by 16th to 17th century, in that time, a new thought came to the mind of the people of Europe. And it was relating to the individual's right. And that individual right over the tradition, it has happened sometimes. The people are devoured, the people are abandoned to have the tradition, to have a religion and the monarchy. So at that time, the individual right was not prevailed. So therefore, enlightenment took place in the Europe. And whenever we talk about the major ideas of enlightenment, but the ideas, we people have the ideas. We all have the ideas, certain ideas. What are the major ideas of the information? What were the major ideas of enlightenment? The first idea, that is reason. So dear friends, human beings could think for themselves and solve the problems logically. That we must keep in mind. The same thing happened to us. And due to, for your information, enlightenment, due to the enlightenment, we came to know that. Due to the enlightenment, we came to know that we have lots of the problems happen. And the human being tries to solve the problems with logic, with the application of the logic. So therefore, without application of the logic, the enlightenment focuses the reason. Again and again, I am repeating it. And the reason is what? Not to solve the problems. Everybody had the problems. It may be the societal problems. It may be the economic problems. It may be the political problems. Maybe the religious problems. So lots of the problems. And we should try to solve all the problems logically. Number two, individualism. Enlightenment focuses on individualism. So, dear friends, every person has own thought. Every person has own ideas. Every person has own duties and the rights. So, enlightenment focuses on individualism, means every individual should be respected for his thought. Therefore, in history, we have gone through that. Facts are sacred. History believes. इतिहास विश्वास करे जे इवेंट बा फैक्ट गुड़िक sacred, पवित्र, but opinions free. Similarly, every individual has own thought, own rights, own course of action. Then skepticism. So, difference, what is the skepticism? Skepticism means questions to the traditional authority, especially to the church and the monarchs. So, dear friends, in the medieval era of 16th to 17th century, when we are talking about it, we are talking about from the 16th to 17th century, near about more than or near about 100 years. So at that time, there were the questions put by the common people. So why they put the questions? They put the questions to the traditional authority. If you will have gone through the French revolutions. In the French revolutions, if people see that, we come to know that the church and the monarchs, churches were the den of the superstitions. Just imagine, dear friends. And in this regard, I'm talking about the skepticism. That means the questions traditional authority, especially the church and the monarchs. And I'm going to talk about what are the major ideas. Another important idea, that is science and empiricism. So, dear friends, when we are talking about the Jagannath Swami, when we are talking about the science, everybody knows science believes on objectivity. Empiricism believes on the scientific temperament. So just imagine, dear friends, science and empiricism is the another important ideas of enlightenment, and it focuses on trust evidence, observation, not superstition. So that is my responsibility, not to accept evil, not to accept evil blindly. That we must keep in mind. And it needs to be the observation. We must observe. We must observe for your information. We must observe. Okay. So science and empiricism, dear friends, perhaps uh, a rain comes. I think that. So, dear friends, if there is heavy rain and if there is no network, okay, then we may stop it. Otherwise, we continue the class because our class is purely based on class is purely based on the network. Okay, so I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the science and empiricism. So, dear friends, when we are talking about the empiricism, I have already told, and this is our responsibility. Our responsibility is to observe the fact, to observe the thing, to observe the actions, not superstition, blindly not to accept it. Then we're talking about the progress. So, enlightenment focuses on the progress. So, what kind of the progress? Progress, we may talk about the humanity, progress of the humanity, and humanity can improve through education, then reform, and the innovation. If you have the reform within you, if you what kind of the reforms? Reforms means if in the true sense, or the reforms is designed by Raja Rammohn Roy, Biraj Lingapantul, Dayananda Saraswati, Surchandra Vidyasagar, Jyotiba Phule, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, Savitribai Phule. So the great personalities in the world context, what they have designed Gautam Buddha, Mahavir, Kabir, Nanak, Chaitanya, Panchashakhas, Madhavidyasi, Totapuri, Balabhacharya, Nimbarka, just the people say that. So they have pointed out that reforms in terms of to eradicate caste system. This is the reforms. And another form of the reforms, if you may talk about it, that is called to look after each and everybody equally. This is the reforms. And then we might talk about the innovations, what kind of the innovations people have. Suppose I am having your class of history, and if people also taught by the authors. So then if people could able to trace out that the way history can be taught. So that is the innovation or the nobility of the scholars or the teachers, as you mentioned, the society. Then if people see that it speaks on the freedom, enlightenment believes on freedom. What Article 19 says, right to the freedom. The freedom means I'm not in support of that of the freedom because freedom is two types. Freedom is two types. One is positive freedoms, and the second one is the negative freedoms. When we are talking about the positive freedoms means when in the freedom there is the constraints. There is the constraints. ଯେଉଁ ସ୍ୱାଧୀନତାରେ ଆମର constraint ଅଛି, ଆମର କିଛି ଅନ୍ତରାୟ ଅଛି, ତାହା ହେଉଛି the positive freedom. ଏବଂ ଯେଉଁ ଫ୍ରିଡମରେ ଆମର ସ୍ୱାଧୀନତା ନାହିଁ, ତାହା ହେଉଛି the negative freedoms. So in this regard, dear friends, I'm talking about what? Talking about the freedom. Freedom for the religious tolerance and freedom of the speech, then the freedom of the democratic principles. Then we may talk about the freedom, for example, to talk, that is called the, the religious tolerance, the freedom of speech, the democratic governance. These are the key features. Now going to key figures who popularized enlightenment and where and what they have emphasized. In this regard, dear friends, John Locke, LOCK. John Locke said people have natural rights. People cannot be divided. People cannot be distinct to each other. That we must keep in mind, dear friends. What exactly John Locke has pointed out that John Locke has pointed out that every people have the natural rights. Rights are not begged. Rights are snatched away. अधिकार को भीकर दिया जाएगा परंतु अधिकार को छड़े लिया जाए. Who says? So, dear friends, when we are talking about the when we are talking about for your information, John Locke, that we must keep in mind. He said that people have natural rights, and if in context to Bharat, what Bal Gangadhar Tilak has pointed out that in context to, for your information, dear friends, he has pointed out that freedom is my birthday right. So rights are not begged. हमको अधिकार को केही भिकर देवा नहीं केही हमको अधिकार को भिकर देई परिबे नाही. Why I am talking about? Because rights are my freedom is my birthday rights. अधिकार होची मोर जन्मगत अधिकार. सरी स्वाधीनता होची मोर जन्मगत अधिकार. जो कथा कि John Locke has pointed out that yes, liberty, everybody has the liberty, then property and the life. So he said the life, liberty and the property are the natural rights. Who said? John Locke said. So this is called the enlightenment. आम कहूचे यदि enlightenment कथा कहबा in true sense, dear friends, what do you mean by the enlightenment? Enlightenment means the new outlook, the new horizons, how the people could have been able to expand their thoughts, their actions, their activities. That must keep in mind. Another key figure of the Enlightenment, he is Voltaire. The Voltaire is known as the king of the French writers. French writers ମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଆମେ ଭୋଲ୍ଟେରଙ୍କୁ ରାଜା ବୋଲି କହିଥାଉ. The king. Reason is what? Reason is, dear friends, Voltaire advocated for free speech. Free speech. What we may talk about Article 19, the first freedom in context to India. What is that? Freedom of speech and expression. Difference when we're talking the freedom of speech, then what kind of the freedom that must be taken into the account? The advocate for the freedom of speech or the free speech. It is here the speech that doesn't mean if it is free, then any country easily contact to us. So Voltaire go through free speech, Article 19. Then Kochi and the religious tolerance. If people are reaching, that is called the 23 to 29%. So that we must keep in mind. The French context to India, Voltaire says that he advocated the free speech. One can speak freely without any restrictions. Without any restrictions. And we are talking the religious tolerance too. The dharmic sahishnata. It is in terms of the secularism. When we talk about India in the 1976, in the time of the emergence, and then the Prime Minister of Indira Gandhi, in the Indian Constitution, secularism and socialist, these two terms introduced. So now I'm going to talk about a difference. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So who talked about the social contract in the year 1762. And he said that the idea that the governments must serve the people. So the government is here more powerful because the government has the responsibility to know. So in this regard, Jacques Rousseau said that the idea that the governments must serve the people. Government must serve the people, just the people see that I'm talking about it. Jacques Rousseau. He said that man born free, our his own chance. ସେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମଣିଷ ମୁକ୍ତ ହେଇକି ଜନ୍ମ ନିଏ କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ସବୁଆଡୁ ବନ୍ଧା। So Rousseau said that the government must serve the people. The people should not serve the government. Government should serve the people because government and the people, the vice versa. The government means what? Government means the power of the people. What how the democracy is, and the government is an organization as it means where both the common people, the middle class, higher education, the intellectuals, the Pluto class, the industrialists, everybody is there. But the government must serve the people. Government must not seva karimauchi. That seva in terms of that you must keep in mind difference. That seva in terms of the speech, in terms of the education, knowledge. So now I'm going to talk about the difference. The Immanuel Kant. So what Immanuel Kant has pointed out in context to the, I'm talking about what? In context to the Enlightenment. So Immanuel Kant encouraged people to dare to know, use their own understanding, dare to know, and use the own understanding. You just imagine one could in Pashimarga. Okay. So Immanuel Kant encouraged the people that they are to know the use of their understanding. So for the better understanding, dear friends, we must keep in mind, dear friends, from the better understanding, that is called the people must know the date, which therefore I'm talking about history is not exactly, rather I'm talking about history, the scientific by narration, scientific by decoration. Okay. So it is Immanuel Kant, dear friends. I'm going to talking about the major importance regarding the Enlightenment. So, dear friends, American independence in 1776, America, molecular difference, we are talking about the inspired political revolutions, the American War of Independence, 1776, the American War of Revolution, and we are talking about the French Revolution. So in this regard, we're going to talk about the birth of the modern democracy and human race ideas, major advance in science, education, encouragement, and capitalism. Now going to talk about difference. In a simple way. So, difference. We are talking about what? We are talking about in the simplest way we must understand that is what is global enlightenment. We people could understand enlightenment was about awakening of from the ignorance. Suppose we are talking about, I may give an example, so like that is called the Sradha. After the demise of the eldest person in a family, we people are performing the Shraddha, and in the performing Shraddha on the 10th day, we invite the dead body, the soul, and people are thinking that the soul's footprint is there. That we must keep in mind, dear friends. It may be in terms of the lion, the tiger, the fish, like that. It's a chinha shape. So therefore, enlightenment believes that waking up from the ignorance, ଆମର ଯୋଉ ଅଜ୍ଞତା ଅଛି ସେ ଅଜ୍ଞତାରେ ଆମକୁ ଦୂରରେ ରହିବା ଉଚିତ 100%, and using the reasons and the knowledge to make better and the free world. ଏଥିରେ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ତୁମର reason and the knowledge must be taken care of. Now, dear friends, we are going to discuss about the another aspects that is called the political revolution. Going to discuss the political revolution. So dear friends, when we're talking about the political revolutions, huh, the political revolution that we must keep in mind. So, what is the political revolution? Political revolution in France generally mean the French Revolution, which was occurred, which was occurred in just a second. Whenever we are talking about the, for your information, our discussion is made the French Revolution, and for your information, the political revolution, we mean the French Revolution. So now question comes, why the French Revolution? The French Revolution is made because to give the people the rights, liberty, equality, and the fraternity. So, dear friends, these are when to talk about the political evolutions. Earlier, just before to talk about it, in France, there was monarchism. Just I am giving the background of the political evolutions. And in this regard, dear friends, the political evolution, when we talk about it, it was it was not an accidental that we must keep in mind, dear friends. And always we people try to keep in mind that is the historical events, dear friends, the historical events are not an accidental. Why? It comes through a process, good prakriya. If I'm talking about your class, for your class, there is the pre-scheduled. They are keeping the consents of the teachers. And similarly, when we're talking about the French Revolution, movement, revolutions, change, reforms are not an accidental. It comes through a process. And when we're talking about the French Revolution, Earlier, in 16th century, in France, or the France was ruled by the Bourbon dynasty. Monarchism was there, kingship was there, ruler was there, not rule. So in 17th century, France was ruled by the Bourbon dynasty in one hand. On the other hand, the conditions of the people, the conditions of the common people, the conditions of the common people was very precarious. It was precarious. Why? It was precarious because the people, the commons, they had no right, they had no freedom, they had no the better life like the upper stratas as per the social stratification is concerned. And at the same time, dear friends, in the French society, we discuss the Bourbon dynasty like the Louis XIV, Louis XV, and Louis XVI. Then Marie Antoinette. So these we are that we must keep in mind, dear friends. The four persons they ruled France, and the neglect to the common people, neglect to the prajas, neglect to the real stakeholders of the state. Then depends when we're talking about it. I'm talking about the French Revolution. For your information, dear friends, I'm talking about it. The French Revolution occurred. The common people, the bourgeois, fought the lower clergy and the provincial nobles, all together are responsible for the cause of the French Revolution. Some are responsible. Whenever we may talk about myself, I myself opposed to the system, opposed to the monarchy system. Why? Now, in the same society, in the same France, when the common people are not mitigating their stomach, when they had no sky-kissing building, when they had no rosy bed and the cozy chair, at that time, dear friends, for your information, at that time, I'm talking about the French society, and in the French society, Louis XIV, 15th, 16th, Marie Antoinette, they ruled for a long period of time. But for your information, they didn't pay the deep ear towards the growth and the development of the people of the France, particularly peasants, artisans, and also we may talk about the agriculturists too. And in this regard, dear friends, when to talk the French Revolution, it is one of the most cherishable moment in the history of the mankind. Every individual refers to the French Revolution, irrespective of the caste, creed, color, sex, race, region, and the religion. Jati, dharma, varna, linga, समस्त आधार that must keep in mind of. So the political cause of the French Revolution is a very biggest cause. And whenever we talk about the political revolution in the France, for the first time, the people, for the first time, the people of France got a new lease of life. No doubt, the friends. ମୁଁ ଯାହା ପଢଉଛି ତାକୁ ରେକର୍ଡିଂ କରିଦଉଥିବ ବେଟର. So, dear friends, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the ruling dynasties. Bourbon dynasty in France. Louis XIV says, I am the state and I am sent by the Caliph, the head of the Islamic society. Just imagine, dear friends. I am the state. My word is law. And everybody during his time he introduced letter the cachet. Letter the cachet. लिख लो. लिख लो. Dear friends, I'm talking about I am the state. My word is law. And I am sent by the God Khalif. He has sent me. According to my word, the state. According to my will, the state will run. I am the state. So after the Bourbon dynasty of the Louis XIV, Louis XV came because he dethroned his post. Because of what? Because of the that must go. We may talk about why the people wanted to leave the government, existing government, because if the government doesn't look after the growth of the development, the sarkar tamar kichi growth ପାଇଁ କୋଉ ଦଉନାହାନ୍ତି. Then here we may discuss Louis XIV says, I am the state. And later the gadget is a system in the France. What of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in India. So the friends, Louis XIV says that, very simple to say, to whom started to make friendship with the Louis XV. But for your information, dear friends, Louis XV says, Louis XV says, what exactly may talk about it? The state is run by me. And he was leading the most luxurious life, was living in the Roji car. Yes, that we must keep in mind, dear friends. So Louis XIV was just sitting on the cozy chair, living in the sky-kissing building, and sleeping was on the Roji bed. The bed is full of rose. So it speaks that, dear friends. He absorbed money from the government. ଟଙ୍କା ସେ ଲୁଟପାଟ କରୁଥିଲେ. So therefore I'm talking about what? Louis XIV said, who was leading the life of the luxury, and his history back to the background of the Kiba. So now question comes after the Louis XIV, in the political horizon, in the political want to talk the revolution is made. Another king came too. He was Louis XVI. So there was the discussions, there was the schematic position that I'm talking about Louis XVI. Became the monarchs. For your information, Louis XVI became the monarchs of the medieval France. What Louis XVI said, the friends, Louis XVI has been contributed a lot. Why I'm talking about now? Louis XVI says, after me the deluge, more Mahaplavan haba. Reason is what? Because my the forefathers have not taught me what to do, what not to do, how to rule. What is your actions plan? Understood? So Louis XVI says that because it is the fact. I'm to Odia କଥା ଅଛି ମୁରୁଗ ବୀଜ ଗୁଣେ ଫୁଟି ଫୁଟିକା. What it speaks? It speaks about your friends. The Louis XVI says after me the deluge because my forefathers have not taught me. ମୋର ପୂର୍ବପୁରୁଷମାନେ ମୋତେ କିଛି ଶିଖେଇ ନାହାନ୍ତି. ମୁଁ ଯେତିକି ସମୟ ରହିଲି, whatever may be, it may be the one day, ମୁଁ ଯେତେ ଦିନ ରହିଲି ସେଦିନ ମୁଁ ଶାସକ. And in this regard, dear friends, when we're talking about the Louis XVI siege, and Louis XVI was so Louis XVI was so powerful in comparison to Louis XV, and we must know that Louis XVI also says comparative history, like you may talk about the difference. Louis XVI coaching after the what to say the deluge because in the France, politically, France was ruined. There was no law and order. It was ruined. So the same thing, Louis XVI, who believes that Ek Brahma Ditya Nasti. Louis XVI believes Ek Brahma Ditya Nasti. There is no God. Suppose you notice the ant has what knowledge? So in this regard, I'm talking about the difference. Louis XVI also responsible. Then coming to the Louis XVII, Louis XIV, Louis XV, Louis XVI, I'm talking about it. Louis XVI says that, oh, bravo, what's a burden on me? My forefathers have not taught me. So he believed that. ସେ କହୁଥିଲା ଯେ ମୋ ଉପରେ ବ୍ରହ୍ମାଣ୍ଡ ଖସି ପଡୁଛି ମୋ ଉପରେ ବ୍ରହ୍ମାଣ୍ଡ ଖସି ପଡୁଛି ଏବଂ ମୁଁ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ସଗଡ଼ ସଜା so dear friends, I'm talking about Louis XVI coaching. What he has pointed out that he said that this is not my mistake. On the basis of the heredity, I am here, Louis XIV, Louis XV, then Louis XVI. So this is the hereditary. Then you may talk about another can study, then we may say that your sisters like this. So it's a difference. For your information, Louis XVI says always. Then the France, the common, the pigeons, the artisans, they needs to be respected because of without their restrictions, without their communications, it's difficult to have it's difficult to notice the progress. So in this regard, difference, Louis XVI says the same. ऐसे बोला कि just I'm talking about oh bravo, then she started to cry. Oh bravo, what a burden on me. ମୋ ଉପରେ କି ବୋଝ ରଖି ଦିଆଯାଉଛି my forefathers have not taught me ମୋର forefathers ମାନେ ମୋତେ କିଛି ପଢେଇ ନାହାନ୍ତି but prior to it for your information Chaitanya Dev as it means it is appeared in the medieval age. And now question comes difference when we are talking about the Louis XVI. Louis XVI was in Odia we are using the parallel language that is called the Maipogola. The reason is different when we're talking about the Louis XVI. He says that the people use how to talk the Bulgaric words just before the Louis XVI. But Louis XVI says, "What can I do? I can't do anything because my forefathers, Louis XIV, XV, or you may talk about Louis XVI achievements. They all have given the torture to me, and as a result." I am not getting the proper justice. And also the same thing is not possible by the justice like the Umakanta Mishra. So now going to talk about the Marie Antoinette. I am sorry, people might have noticed that Marie Antoinette was the wife of 16th Mahajanapada. That we must keep reminded, friends. And whenever we may talk the Louis XVI, some scholars they have been argued that Raja Sultana was the first ever lady rulers of India, but no. But prior to him, we people know Kamala, and we people know or that may talk about it to prove for your information. Marie Antoinette was an extravagant lady, extravagant, who spent money lavishly without thinking anything. Lavishly. So difference, it was all about the political coach, and through the political coach, the people could have able to know how to fight. Kival Juddha Karachipo. From the political science, the students must know that I expected, that I believed that. Okay. So now, dear friends, another coach that is the most important coach, we call it no. So dear friends, so when we are talking about the Raja Sultana, he was not the first lady ruler medieval Odisha because prior to her in Odisha, the Gangabanshi. It was such a political history that you must keep in mind, dear friends. It was such political history. What the people were enjoyed a lot. But now, if you can ask it to the other people, they may not aware about what I'm telling. And in this regard, dear friends, as the Marie Antoinette, Spain, the royal treasury of the France, empty, and ultimately he decided, Marie Antoinette decided to appoint the finance minister. He decided to appoint the finance minister because of what? Because of how to release the funds from how to release the funds from the hands of the unsocials. It was the motto, dear friends. It was the motto that we must keep in mind. Okay. So in this regard, dear friends, historians have been pointed out that he Marie Antoinette was an extravagant lady, and she was using the luxurious life. Louis XVI was just a puppet in the hands of the Marie Antoinette. And ultimately, when to talk about the first phase, when we are talking about the first phase, that what is that? The first phase is the political revolutions. Please just a second. We are talking about the war. ये क्लास के लोग जो है पांच सौ सात दस लोग अब तो essence ना so people see that I'm talking about what I'm talking about it was the first phase when to talk about the a political revolution is made in the France because the people they were not satisfied with the rule of the Bourbon dynasty, with the administration of the Bourbon dynasty. As a result, the people wanted a ray of hope. The people wanted a ray of hope. So therefore, they raised the voice against the political history, the political conditions, and politically in France, there was the tyrannical rule. That means the administration was not according to the will of the people, according to the opinion of the people. Therefore, Rousseau has pointed out that in the French, Vox Populi, Vox Dei, the voice of the people is the voice of the God. ଈଶ୍ୱରଙ୍କ ମତ ଜନମତ ଈଶ୍ୱରଙ୍କ ଜନମତ ହେଉଛି ଈଶ୍ୱରଙ୍କ ମତ your opinion, like the Swara, Swadhin, Gayatri, and Asharani, your opinion is just like the opinion of the God in context to our class. So therefore, the political coach was responsible. I told the 14th, the 15th, 16th, Antoinette, they were ruling the France not in the eyes of the common people, but in the eyes of the Bourbon dynasty. As a result, the common people they became fire and they fought against the Louis XIV, 15th, 16th, and Marie Antoinette because politically they were devoured. They had no liberty, they had no freedom, they had no liberty, no equality. So another cause difference we may talk about the social cause. So the political upheaval in the France, the political history of the France, or the political revolution in the France is possible because of the social cause. Now I'm going to talk about it, dear friends. What is the social cause? So the social cause is classified under the three states. Yes, Gayatri, understand? Gayatri,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, dear friends, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the social cause. The political revolution in the France is the outcome of the social cause. So, from the society point of view, the French society was classified under three sections. One is the first state, the second state, and the third state. When to talk about the first state, dear friends, the first state deals with the nobles, and the nobles were divided into two. One is the court nobles and uh, the court nobles and the provincial nobles. Court noble and the provincial nobles. The question comes to friends. So, what are the responsibilities of the court nobles? The court nobles, they were just enjoying the rights of the Gajpati, the rights of the Bhim. Sorry, I'm talking about the difference. When we're talking about the provincial uh, nobles, they were not respected like the court nobles. The court nobles were just equal to the uh, French rulers, the 14th, 15th, 16th, and Marie Antoinette. And they are getting the abundant of the facilities, as we know. They're leaving the church, and the church were running according to their instructions, and the money was again gaining through the church. It was reaching to the people. So now going to talk about social, the common of the provincial nobles. They were not getting the respect like the Brahminicals, or you may talk about the individual. So from that point of view, we must keep in mind, dear friends, or Chita, or you may talk about Asha Gayatri, Swadhin Sharam. We must keep in mind, dear friends, there was the imbalance between the court nobles and the provincial nobles. The court nobles had the power, but the provincial nobles, when we talk about that, the power is not in the hand, rather, when we talk about the power is classified, distributed among the managed. So it is, I am talking about the economic cause, dear friends, sorry, social cause. Next, the second is that deals with the uh, uh, clergy, nobles clergy. So, dear friends, when we talk about the clergy, but clerk to talk about it. So it is mentioned that the clerks are hardworking. The clergy are truly the hardworkings, but after the French revolutions, the position of the uh, what do you matter the it may be difference as far the social cause is concerned of the French political revolution. The first bit I have already told, and the second bit we are talking about the pragya. In the social context, we may talk about it. The nobles get bath. We are talking about the clergies. The clergies are divided into two: the higher clergies and the lower clergies. And different the higher clergies, they were working, and we may talk about the higher clergies and the two types. Lower clergies, higher clergies, lower clergies. And the lower clergies, they were working at the grassroots level of the society. Society at the grassroots level is and for your information, dear friends, we must keep in mind that the court nobles, the court clergies, they were getting the true sense of the management. They're having the creams, and with the Udiyas, the Bhatyas, particularly, we are not paid to the visit there and to have for your information. The court nobles, they were getting the facilities. They're leading the luxurious life, living the stylish building. Even the most important part, they were not given the tax to the government. सरकार इसमें टिकस दौनथिले. That is the big thing. So in this regard, dear friends, I'm talking about it. The social conditions of the society. Step number one, step number two. And if people see the dynasty imposes the rules, the regulations on the clergy, and as a result, they are not getting that much of the salary. And I thought that suppose the person is working hard, at least like so now I'm going to talk about the difference. You might talk about social conditions, that is called the second state, lower clergy, upper clergy. Clergy, they are fond of the work in the nation and the okay, dear friends, I'm talking about what? The social conditions, like the clergy, upper clergy, lower clergy, they are paying the taxes without getting any benefits. On the other hand, I'm talking about the difference, the third state, and the third state is the combination of the bourgeois and the peasants. People say that whenever we are talking about the peasants' conditions, the condition was not well to do. The reason is what? Why the condition is not well to do? The reason is if we are talking about the difference, the third state, their life is precarious because the society is the combination of the middle class, the artisans, and the bourgeois. Like we talk about all the great personalities of the world are become the members of the what I'm talking about the security councils, or we may talk about the so dear friends, I'm coming to the third state is the combination of the artisans and the doctors, engineers, carpenters, goldsmith, silversmith, ironsmith. So, and whenever we talk about the bourgeois, particularly the bourgeois having the highest wicket taker in the World Cup final, particularly, and in this regard, difference I'm talking about the common people like the bourgeois, the teachers, the doctors, the artisans, they belong to the third category, but they belong to the second half. But for your information, dear friends, when we are talking about the bourgeois, like we talk the peasants particularly, they didn't mitigate their stomachs. Okay, dear friends, take out 5 minutes. We may have the rest to take the tea. ତୁମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଥାଅ କି ନାଇଁ ଯଦି ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଇକି ପୁଣି ଆଉଥରେ ଆସିବ ସେମ୍ ଲିଙ୍କ ସେ ଲିଙ୍କରେ ଆମେ ଜଏନ୍ କରିବା ଓକେ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଗୋଟେ 5 ମିନିଟ୍ ଜଷ୍ଟ ଟୁ ହାଭ୍ ଏ ରିଲାକ୍ସ So, dear friends, we are talking about what? We are talking about, for your information, the social cause, and in context to the social cause, we see that is the patients, for your information, the patients, they were not getting the proper justice as far as the French Revolution is concerned. Why? It is mentioned that the peasants, for your information, dear friends, they were producing, generally, they were engaged in the agriculture. And what the agricultural production is made, what the agricultural production is happened by the peasants, they were not getting it. They are not getting it because of what? Because the peasants of, if I talk about it, dear friends, the peasants of the nobles, the clergies, or I may talk about the rulers of the Bourbon dynasty. They are peasants we are eating the agricultural productions, and it is mentioned, dear friends, the pigeons they didn't mitigate their stomachs with the agricultural production, rather they mitigated their stomachs with the water. Then we talk about the roots, the grass. So that we must keep in mind, dear friends. So it speaks that of what was the precarious conditions or in the French revolutions and more particularly in the France. The common people, they were exploited physically, mentally, economically, politically. They were not getting the justice. They were not properly treated. They were ill treated and exploited. And ultimately, the people they decided, I'm talking about the social conditions, with the nobles, with the bourgeois, the provincial nobles, because if you just compare the provincial nobles with the court nobles, the court nobles they were enjoying the luxurious life. Economically, they were empowered. They were not paying any kind of the taxes. On the other hand, they were getting all the privileges, all the facilities from the society. The same thing, the higher clergy and the lower clergy. So there were the comparisons. So the lower clergy, they were not getting that much of the status of the higher clergy. So ultimately, what happened? Ultimately, we are dissatisfied. So the provincial nobles, then we talk about the court nobles for your information. The provincial nobles, the court nobles, uh, the provincial nobles, then the I'm talking about the lower clergy and the peasants, the common people. They became united because these sections we are socially exploited, socially not getting justice, respect. So they wanted a ray of hope that you must keep in mind, dear friends. So they wanted a ray of hope. ସେମାନେ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ they wanted a ray of hope ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ ସେମାନେ how to get the justice, how to get the freedom, how to lead a better life. So it was another speculations as far as the French Revolution is concerned, the political revolution in France is concerned. And now we are talking about it, dear friends, the another aspects that is called the economic cause. And it is the fact, dear friends, the France during the time of the Bourbon dynasty, the Louis XIV, 15th, Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, we are involved in the one hand, the luxury life, pompous life, living, yes, we people see on the rosy bed, and want to talk about the living in the skyscraper building. sleeping on the rosy bed and sitting on the cozy chair. In one hand, other hand, the Bourbon dynasty, the rulers, they fought with the 7 Years' War with England. Saptabarshiya Judha. So when we talk about the war is not simply the transactions of the money. Rather, we may talk about war needs money. What needs the financial stability? What today we may talk about yesterday, India and Pakistan. People see that. So if there would be the war, no doubt, both India will lose and the Pakistan will lose. India will lose the finance. Pakistan lost the finance. The many people from the both sides would be the martyrs. We never use the term the martyrs would kill. So in this regard, dear friends, the economic condition of the France was not well to do. It was not well to do. Why I'm talking about it? I'm talking about it because the kings, the monarchs, the rulers, they were involved in the 7 Years' War with the England as a result. France was losing the royal treasury. So France was losing the royal treasury. ଆମର ଯୋଉ ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର କୋଷାଗାର ସୋ ଫ୍ରାନ୍ସର ରାଜକୋଷାଗାର ନଷ୍ଟ ମାନେ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହବାକୁ ଲାଗିଲା in one hand. Other hand, they were leading the pompous life, luxurious life. And even if they didn't pay the taxes. So dear friends, for the luxury life and to enhance the economy, what happened, dear friends? I'm talking about the common people's agriculture was ruined because of the peasants. So France was economically paralyzed. In one hand, the war they involved. Other hand, the 7 Years' War. So ultimately, what happened? We came to know that ultimately the economic condition was very poor in France. And dear friends, at the same time, when we are talking about at the same time, okay. So dear friends, we are talking about at the same time, Louis XVI decided to improve the economic standard of the France. ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ କଥା ଅଛି ଯେତିକି ଚୁନାକୁ ସେତିକି ପିଠା. Yes, am I wrong or right? Right. So dear friends, Rachana, I'm talking about it. Yes, Sarah be right. ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ କଥା ଅଛି ଯେ ଯେତିକି ଚୁନାକୁ ସେତିକି ପିଠା. But what happened in the France? In one hand, the France income was based on the collection of the taxes. So as far as the economic condition is concerned, the Bourbon dynasty, the rulers, they imposed the taxes and collected the taxes in high rate, like the tilthe, telo. So these are the tax name, tilthe, telo, karvi. So these are the taxes imposed on the people. And in one hand, the people they become exploited, economically exploited by giving the taxes. And in the other hand, Louis XVI, 17th, Louis 14th, 15th, 16th, and Marie Antoinette, they spend the money lavishly. ମାନେ ବଦଖର୍ଚ୍ଚୀ ତେଣୁକରି ଫ୍ରାନ୍ସର ଆର୍ଥିକ ଅବସ୍ଥା ସ୍ୱଚ୍ଛଳ ହେଇଗଲା, ଦୁର୍ବଳ ହେଇଗଲା. So Louis XVI decided, Louis XVI, for your information, dear friends, Louis XVI decided to appoint, Louis XVI decided to appoint the finance ministers. So for your information, dear friends, he appointed the finance minister. क्यों? For your information, dear friends, to enhance and to recovery. We are talking about it. Louis XVI decided to appoint the finance minister. The reason is to enhance the economy of the France. So in this regard, three finance ministers appointed. You may talk about the target. You may talk about Neckar. You may talk about the Kelon. So for your information, dear friends, we are talking about it. The three finance ministers appointed one after another. The first one to talk about the target, Neckar, and the Kelon. Target gave the suggestion to whom? To Louis XVI, that to prepare the chart of income and expenditure. केते हमर इनकम होची, केते expenditure होची. At least the people must know, because the people are paying the tax. So when the people are paying the tax, they have the right to know the proper utilization of the money by, you may talk about Louis XVI, or you may talk about Louis XVI, or for your information I'm talking about. Just a second. So dear friends, I am talking about what? I am talking about Target gave the proposal. Target gave the proposal. What was the proposal? That the state's income and the state's expenditure must be listed. But what happened? Louis XVI wife, Marie Antoinette, interfere in the matter of Louis XVI. Because what I'm talking about, the Marie Antoinette suggested that if the people could able to know the Bourbon dynasty spends the money lavishly, then it would be difficult to lead the luxury life, the pompous life in the France by the rulers of the Bourbon dynasty. So Marie Antoinette suggested to Louis XVI, to her husband, to dismiss Turgot. So Turgot was dismissed. So after the Turgot, for your information, after the Turgot, Neckar came. So Neckar gave the proposal as the finance minister, at least to reduce the expenditure of the state. राज्यर खर्च को कांछांट करबा दरकार. If you may talk about Odisha today, just imagine, dear friends. In 2000, there were the 20,000 crores of loan of Odisha. Now it has reached 1,30,000 crores of the loan. So ultimately, what would happen to Odisha? Fate of Odisha, the fate of me, fate of you people. So from that point of view, we may talk about once upon a time, Odisha the economy of Odisha may paralyzed. No one can predict it. Similarly, Necker gave the proposal to the 16th that you stop the 7 years war in one hand, other hand, you stop the expenditure. So if the expenditure once checked, then there is the possibilities to enhance the state treasury. But when this proposal was given by the Necker, so again Marie Antoinette interfered in the matter, and like Turgot Necker was also dismissed. Next, Calonne came. What Calonne gave the proposal as the finance minister to Louis XVI. So he gave the proposal to Louis XVI. If you want to enhance the royal treasury or to improve the financial condition of the France, then what to do? To borrow the loan. Everybody knows, I'm sure, dear friends, there is a theory, a Charbak theory. Charbak says, runam krutwang घृतं pivet ऋण करी, that must keep in mind, dear friends. ऋण करी घी खाओ. How far it is justified? Is it justified? Is it justified? No, I am sure. ଋଣ କରିବା ଘିଅ ଖାଇବା ତାର ଅର୍ଥ କଣ ଥାଏ ମତେ ବୁଝା ପଡେନା. So ସେଥିପାଇଁ Calonne gave the proposal, and as a result, the borrowing money, the loan of the France, was increased 10 times, and ultimately, dear friends, the three ministers, finance ministers, were dismissed one after another by the interference of I'm talking about the Marie Antoinette. So, by giving the tax after tax, the common people, the peasants, the bourgeois, their economic standard, economic backbone became, their economic backbone became ruined. Their economic backbone became weak or the ruined like this. So, dear friends, we're talking about the most important cause, that is called the intellectual cause of the French Revolution. And for your information, when just we are talking about, when just we are talking about the, for your information, dear friends, the French Revolution and the intellectual cause, I have already told. In the context of the world, 1799 to 1789 to 1799, and the French people, they overthrew, they dethroned, could able to dethrone Louis XVI, and they established the government. I have already told, the state was based on the liberty, equality, and fraternity. So people see that they destroyed the old system because they wanted the powers should not be in the hands of the kings or the royal officials, or rather, talk of the powers should be in the hands of the people. And the people see that the French Revolution introduced democracy. Now, India is the largest democratic country in the world, and introduced the concept of the right. People see that you all have the rights, I'm sure. And citizenship means every individual should have the opinion, should have the rights, should have the freedoms. It is only because of possible by the, it is possible because of the French revolutions. And in this regard, dear friends, I have already told the economic conditions, the social inequality, like I have already told, there was the very high, the very low, there was the gap between the rich and the poor. First state, second state, I have already told, the third state, I have I have told means there is a slogan in the French Revolution that the common people, the third state, like I talk the peasants, workers, I talk the middle class, they paid all the taxes but had no political power. They paid all the taxes, but they don't have any uh, the freedoms. They paid the taxes, but they had no access to lead the elite class. And in this regard, dear friends, the another important thing is here that we are talking about the philosophers, philosophical coach, Locke, Rousseau, Voltaire, Montesquieu, Denis. So, dear friends, when we are talking about the French Revolution, and for your information, we are talking about what? The intellectual cause of the French Revolutions. I am sure, I am sure. In context to the Kalinga War, ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛେ ଯେ ମସିର ବଳ ଅଶୀର ବଳ ଠାରୁ ଅଧିକା ଆମେ ପଢିଛେ. So in this regard, dear friends, when we're talking about it, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the French Revolution was possible. The political revolution in France was possible because of what? Because of the intellectuals like Montesquieu, Voltaire, Rousseau. So, dear friends, Montesquieu, Voltaire, Rousseau, for your information, they, if you may talk about the Montesquieu, Voltaire, sorry, Rousseau, he has mentioned in 1762 the social contract. In the social contract, he has mentioned the social contract. He has mentioned that man burns free, everywhere he is in chains. And at the same time, dear friends, I'm talking about man burns free and everywhere he is in chains. ମଣିଷ ମନୁଷ୍ୟ ମୁକ୍ତ ହେଇ ଜନ୍ମ ନିଏ କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ଶୃଙ୍ଖଳ ଦ୍ୱାରା ବନ୍ଧା. The second sentence of the social contract, you have the caliber to break down the chains. तुम पाखरे caliber ଅଛି, you have the caliber to break down the chains. ଚେନ୍ ଭାଙ୍ଗିବାର caliber तुम ପାଖରେ ଅଛି. ସେଥିପାଇଁ the what to say, Rousseau social contract theory, he said that you have the right to change the government. So general will is the most powerful will. If the government doesn't work according to the will of the common people, then you have the right to change the government. It was the statement of the Rousseau. As a result, the people got a ray of hope. ସେ ଏକ ବିଶ୍ୱାସ ଆସିଲା ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଯେ ଋଷୁଙ୍କ ଲେଖା ଦ୍ୱାରା ସେମାନେ ଚାହିଁଲେ ଯେ ଇଂରେଜ ସରି ବର୍ବନ ଡାଇନାଷ୍ଟି ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ କରିବେ. And they did it. Similarly, the Voltaire Montesquieu says separation of the power in the spirit of the law. Spirit of the law, another book, se କହିଲେ separation of the power. Power should not be confined in the hand, rather in the talk in the case of India, that is the executive, legislative, and the judiciary. People say that. So it is the another aspects when to talk about power should be separated, because in the political science there is a statement. What is that statement? The statement is power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. କ୍ଷମତା ଦୁର୍ନୀତିଗ୍ରସ୍ତ, ନିରଙ୍କୁଶ କ୍ଷମତା ଦୁର୍ନୀତିର ଏନ୍ତୁଡ଼ିଶା. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. ତେଣୁକରି if the power should be separated, then there is the possibilities of the check of the corruptions. That we must keep in mind. And the Voltaire says that the churches are the den of the superstitions. So in this regard, we came to know that the French people, the commons, the peasants, the lower clergies, and the provincial nobles, they became united. And in 1789, they marched towards the Bastille Fort, and caught fire at the Bastille Fort. And ultimately, what happened? Louis XVI flight, Louis XVI, and Tankar wife Marie Antoinette, they left France. And in the France, socialism, social democracy was established by the common people. So, dear friends, it was one of the important aspects when we talk about the French Revolution is concerned. And in this regard, we see that there was the result of the French Revolution, that we may talk about the end of the absolute monarchy. Monarchism was came to an end. Then the rise of the secular non-religious democratic ideas took birth, and the declaration of the rights of the man and the citizen took birth and inspired the revolutions across the Europe and the Latin America, and it paved the path of the modern nationalism and shaped the liberal democracy. It was all about your, for your information, friends. It was all about your the political revolutions in the France. So, in this regard, if we might talk about the another aspect that is called the theories of the state. Theories of state. So, dear friends, when we are talking about when we are talking about the theories of state, yes, we must keep in mind, dear friends. First of all, we must think the state is what is a state in the political science. A state is an organized political community, and the state having the four basic elements. If you are talking about the Garner, a great political scientist, what Garner has pointed out that, dear friends, Garner says that the politics starts with the state and ends with the state. So state is ultimate. And whenever we talk about the state, for your information, dear friends, state has four basic elements. One is the state has the four basic elements I told in the political science. A state is an organized political community. State is an organized political community, and it has the four basic elements. So, what are the basic elements of the state? Number one, that is called the government. Number two, we are talking about a definite territory. Number three, the sovereignty. Number four, population. And number five, recognition by others. So now, when we talk about the theories of the political, the theories of the state, we come to know that, dear friends, state, sometimes the question comes, how did states come to existence? Whether it was an accidental, or we may talk about whether it was an accidental or it was a process. Then why do they exist? Then what justifies their powers? No doubt state has some powers that cannot be rejected. So, in this regard, we are talking about the major theories of the state, dear friends. We are talking about the major theories of the state. So now, dear friends, when we are talking about the major theories of the state, if we are talking about the major theories of state, the first one is, I'm talking about, the first one is the theories of kingship, that we must keep in mind, dear friends. The theories of kingship, we are talking about the theories of kingship. So what is the theories of kingship? Yes, it is happened. In case of India, in the medieval Europe, divine right theory. This is the theory of the state. So what is the divine right of the theory? You may talk about the Ladun Khalji, you may talk of the Sultanates, you may talk about the Mughals, you may talk about the friends, the Bourbon dynasty, the rulers, Louis XIV, 15th, Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette. They believe that the divine right theory means the state is created by God. The state is created by God. And the kings, the rulers, are God's representatives on the earth. It has happened when we are talking about Louis XIV says, I am the state. Can I say? I cannot say. We cannot say because we are in the democracy. And the democracy, everyone is the God. Everyone's contributions make the state. So divine theory says that the state is created by the God, and the kings and the rulers, they are the representatives of the God on the earth. ଭଗବାନଙ୍କର ଏମାନେ ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ପ୍ରତିନିଧି. Just imagine, dear friends. And then the ruler's authority comes directly from the God. They are saying that. They're saying the power of the king is sanctioned by the God. And that people say that the letter the Cachet. So the letter the Cachet says that, or according to it, without any trial, ଜଣେ ଦୋଷୀ କରିଛି ବା ନ କରିଛି ତାର ଶୁଣାଣି ନ କରି ତାକୁ ଜେଲକୁ ପଠା ଦିଆଯାଉଥିଲା. It is correspondent to, corroborated to the Rowlatt Act in India in 1999. এখানে দেখিলে divine theory of the state. Ruler's authority comes directly from the God and people must obey. For example, I have already told that is the monarchs like Louis XVI says that I am the state. My word is the law. And I am the representatives of the God. So, who were the thinkers of it? The political thinker was Bossuet. Now coming to social contract theory. So what is the social contract theory? For your information, the social contract theory is the state is a result of an agreement. I am making the agreement with the IGNO. And if people are make the agreement with me at 5 to 7, we people should join contract among the individuals to form the government that protects their rights. So why the agreement is made? The agreement is made in the state only because to protect their rights, to emphasize their freedom, and the people voluntarily give up some freedoms for the security provided by the state. So here there is the vice versa between the citizens, between the people, and in the other hand, dear friends. In the other hand, we must say that there is the agreement within the state by the people regarding the protection of their security, and and that security is provided by the state. We are living peacefully, we are sleeping peacefully because the police department is there, and that police department is propagated. That police department is appointed, police administration is appointed by the state. So this is called the contract theory. Now, dear friends, we are talking about the thinkers of the social contract theory. First one is Thomas Hobbes. People are naturally selfish. We need a strong ruler, Leviathan, to maintain order. John Locke says people have the natural rights, life, liberty, freedom, property, equality, and the government must protect them. That is my responsibility, dear friends, to take the class properly and to provide the proper education to people. As a result, your future is protected. So your future protection is in my hand, in the hands of the teachers. And Rousseau says the people are naturally good. People are good. Government must reflect the general will of the people. I told in context to the French Revolution. And dear friends, what is that? Rousseau says man born is free. And everywhere he is in chains. Everywhere he is in chains. Now coming to the force theory, another theory, we call the force theory. So dear friends, idea, the state was created through the force. If we may talk about the medieval world, medieval India, the rulers, they by force, by the use of the expedition, by the application of the military powers, force, violence, war, they established the state. Just imagine for your information, when we are talking about the Afghanistan, what happened in the Afghanistan? Just a few years back, the Taliban's, by force, they took over the charge of the Afghanistan. So, dear friends, for your information, we came to know that force theory is generally based on force theory is generally based on, for your information, I'm talking about it. The force theory is based on the conquest, violence. I'm talking about the, for your information, the conquest. Then we may talk about the violence. We may talk about the war. And here, one person or a group impose the rule over others and establishes the authority. This is called the force theory. And here, power comes first, then law and the government established second. And if we may talk about the examples, difference for your information, in history we have the example that is called the Roman empires. So the Roman empires, like we talk about under the Julius Caesar, Augusta Caesar, we notice. So in the early empires like the Roman empires, the kingdoms were established by the military conquests. For your better understanding, when we talk about the Alauddin Khalji led the expedition against northern India and the South India. That must have been mind difference. Chandragupta Maurya in ancient times, they conquest the territory after territory, and they expand the empire, the political empires. So in this regard, dear friends, we are talking about the state is the third theory. The state is possible, or it is established through the force theory. Coming to the evolutionary theory. What is the evolutionary theory? So dear friends, the state evolved naturally from the early family structure. In this regard, we may talk about the Neolithic age. In the Neolithic age, for the first time, the people they started to live together. The village took birth, and the village was the combined of the families. The families lead to the clans lead to the tribes lead to the complex societies, and that complex societies leads to the state. So therefore, dear friends, go back to prior to the Neolithic age, or if people can reach to the Paleolithic age, there was no society. There is the society, but there is no state. But since Neolithic age, the state concept took birth because the people they started to live together, and the village life, the compact life, the community life. And when the societies became more complex, at the meantime, the state took birth. I'm talking about the evolution theory. And over time, as we people see that, the human society became more complex, and the leadership structure grew into the governments. So, dear friends, if we talk the state is a natural development, I told again and again, I told again and again that for your information, the state is naturally developed, not sudden, not accidental. This is the fourth theory. The Marxist theory believes that the state is formed with the class conflict theory. So the state is a tool. The state is a tool. The state is an instrument of the ruling economic classes. We call it the capitalists, Punjipati, to control the workers, the proletariat. The same thing happened now. Even today, the same thing is happened in all over the world. We are using the term thilawala, not thilawala. The people having the knowledge, the people having the finance, they are trying to dominate to common people, the workers. So people see the Marxist theory is the class conflict. As a result, there is a class conflict. Shreni Juddha, Shreni Sangharsha, Shreni Dvandha, and it is promoted by the Karl Marx. So Karl Marx says, when the working class rises up, the state will eventually wither away after a communist revolution. Karl Marx said, and Frederick Engels, they are the two friends, they are thinking that the state is the outcome of the class struggle between when the common people, because in the society in the ancient times, medieval times, in the modern times, in the contemporary times, the common people are the majority. And when the common people once rise, then yes, there is the formation of the state as the oppressive tool. And now I'm going to talk about, dear friends, the patriarchal and the patriarchal theory. So, dear friends, when we are talking about the different theories, so for your information, dear friends, I'm talking about here I'm talking about the patriarchal and the matriarchal theories. Everybody knows. The earliest states we are modeled after the family system. Go back to the ancient Harappan civilizations. You may talk about the Vedic civilizations. So patriarchal and the matriarchal assumes where the father ruled over in the latter Vedic age. Matriarchal mother rules. Society is expanded into the larger political structures. So, from that point of view, the society sometimes, for a better understanding, is leading to the paternal society and the maternal society. I'm going to talk about, dear friends, I'm talking about the different theories in the quick achievements. In nutshell, when to talk about the divine theory, the divine rights theory, it relates that the state equal to God's will. Due to the God's will, the state has formed, and the authorities were the Bosent and the monarchists. Then coming to the, we have discussed just in the north, that is the social contract, coming to the agreement among the people. The authorities were the Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. Then coming to the force theory, the force theory based on the conquest, power, violence, and it is the historical conquerors like the Ashoka, like the Alexander, the Mughals, the French, we may talk about. The evolutionary theory, it believes in the natural growth within the family. And generally, the anthropologists and the historians accepted it. The Marxist theory believes that the class struggle and the oppressions, Frederick Engels and the Karl Marx. Then we're talking the patriarchal theory, where the both the family male and the females they could have been able to extend the rule that the early sociologists have been believed that. And now it was all about, dear friends, the states theory. Now going to talk about the democratic politics, the another aspects. Democratic politics. Dear friends, when we're talking about the democratic politics, sometimes the questions comes to our mind. Gee, what is the democratic politics? Democratic politics means the politics is based on the democratic principles. And the democratic politics refers to the system of the governance and where the people belongs to, the power belongs to the people. That we are talking about the difference, the democracy. The word democracy is derived from the Greek word demos and kratos. When we're talking about the demos and the kratos difference, that we must keep in mind. The demos and the kratos. Demos means I'm talking about the people. Power means kratos means the power. So demos and kratos as means the power of the people. So democracy is believes on the power of the people. Then what kind of the power? What kind of the power vested in the hands of the people? The people are the true sense. The people in true sense are the source that you must keep in mind, dear friends. That the source of the power, because they cast up the votes and through the adult franchise, and they form the government through the elected representatives. So the people directly or the indirectly, they're involved in making the laws. They're involved in making the state. They're involved in making the government. So therefore, Abraham Lincoln has rightly pointed out that what Lincoln says, dear friends, Lincoln says that democracy is of the people, for the people, and by the people. That cannot be neglected. That cannot be neglected. So in this regard, dear friends, when we are talking about, for your information, when we are talking about the democratic theories, or we are talking about the political democratic politics. So democratic politics, we understand, we people, or we clearly understand that this is the democratic politics where or the when we may talk about it, dear friends. Democratic politics is generally meant for the instructions that citizens have the right to participate in the political decision making, making the laws. And is that directly, I have already told, through the elected representatives or indirectly. So then, as a common man, we understand that what is the democratic politics? Dear friends, the democratic politics is the people's rule, not the king's. The rule of the law, not the rulers or the dictators, the elites. So whenever we may talk about the democratic politics, yes, it has some sorts of the principles, dear friend. So what kind of the principles? One is the popular sovereignty. Second one, the political equality. The third one is the majority rule. The fourth one is the rule of the law. And the fifth one, I'm talking of the free, fair, and the compulsory and the regular elections. That we must keep in mind. That we must keep in mind. Then we're talking about the protections of the fundamental rights. Then we're talking about the accountability and the transparency. So, dear friends, when to talk about the democratic politics, we may talk about it. And when to talk about the types of the democracy, we see the two types of the democracy, the direct democracy and the indirect democracy, the representative form of the democracy. And if people see that in context of the democratic politics, we notice that the democratic institutions like the parliament, executive, legislature, judiciary, the political parties, the free press. So that may talk about it, dear friends. So it was all about, we may talk about the political theories of the democratic politics as you mentioned, friends. So ଆଜି ଆମେ ବହୁତ ଗୁଡେ ଜିନିଷକୁ ଆଲୋଚନା କଲେ. We discussed a lot regarding the enlightenment. Then I'm talking about, for your information, enlightenment, number one. And number two, we discussed the theories of the state. Then we discussed the political development in the France. And last but not the least, we discussed the democratic politics. Okay. Rachana understood?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Gayatri?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Swadhin?
Again, sir.
Okay. Asarani, any doubts? Or we discussed good? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank you,
patient
sir. Thank
audience.
you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Namaskar.